I was 18 years old when my father told me I was going to be married. I was standing at the stove, stirring a pot of oatmeal, watching it thicken slowly as the morning light slipped through the kitchen window. October light, thin, pale, already exhausted before the day had even begun. My younger sisters were still asleep upstairs. The house was quiet in that heavy, fragile way it sometimes is before everything changes. My father sat down at the table behind me. No warning, no softness, no attempt to prepare me. "Ezra Mullet has asked for your hand," he said. "I have given him my answer." I didn't turn around. I kept stirring the oatmeal, slow and steady, like if I stopped, something inside me might break open in a way I wouldn't be able to contain. "What was your answer, Dad?" I asked quietly. I told him yes. That was it, just like that, my life, decided in a sentence. My name is Hannah. I was born into an Amish community in Sugar Creek, Ohio, a place where obedience is taught before independence, where a girl learns early that her voice is softer than the men who speak for her. I was raised to be useful, to be modest, to be agreeable, to trust that my father, my bishop, and eventually my husband understood God's will more clearly than I ever could. I'm 23 years old now, and I can tell you with certainty that everything I believed about obedience, about silence, about whose voice matters, I had to unlearn piece by piece in ways that left marks no one could see. Ezra Mullet was 50. I had known him my entire life, in the distant, familiar way you know everyone in a small community. He was a large man, solid, deliberate, with a gray beard that reached his chest and hands shaped by years of careful labor. A furniture maker. Respected, established, safe. At least that's what people said. He had been married once before. His wife Martha had died 6 years earlier, leaving behind 4 children. The oldest was 20, 2 years older than me. That detail stayed with me longer than anything else. Not his reputation, not his stability. That. My father was not a cruel man. That's important to understand. This wasn't violence. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even indifference. It was belief. He truly believed he was doing right by me. That a stable man was a good man. That a good man meant a good life. Yet that love would come later, after commitment, after duty, after acceptance. Maybe for some women it does, but he never asked if I was one of them. That was the part that stayed with me. Not the marriage itself, but the absence of choice. Ezra visited our house 3 times before the wedding. The first time he spoke only to my father. I served coffee. I stood. I listened. I didn't exist in the conversation that determined my future. The second time, he brought me a gift. A small wooden box, smooth and carefully made, my initials carved into the lid. It was thoughtful, precise. I remember holding it in my hands and feeling nothing, no excitement, no warmth, just the distant awareness that someone had already begun building a life around me without ever asking who I was. The third time, yet he spoke to me. "I know this isn't easy," he said, "but I will provide for you." I nodded. "Thank you." Then he added, "My children need a mother." And in that moment, everything became clear. I wasn't chosen. I was needed. There's a difference. We were married on a cold Thursday in November. The ceremony lasted hours. Scripture, hymns, the bishop speaking about duty, commitment, submission. I sat beside Ezra, hands folded, heart strangely calm. Not peaceful, just resigned. Like standing in deep water and realizing you're too far from shore to turn back. His youngest daughter, Miriam, reached forward during the ceremony and touched my sleeve. When I looked at her, she smiled, small, uncertain, hopeful. It was the kindest thing that happened that day. Yeah. The house I moved into still belonged to Martha. Not legally. That had already shifted to me, but in every other way that mattered. Her curtains, her kitchen, her order, her presence. It lingered in every room like a quiet echo. For months, I didn't change anything. It didn't feel like my life yet. It felt like I had stepped into someone else's and was expected to continue it seamlessly. Ezra was not unkind. He never raised his voice, never humiliated me, never denied me anything material. But he didn't see me. Not in the way that makes a person feel real. To him, I was a role fulfilled efficiently. A wife, a caretaker, a steady presence in a life that had required one. And for a long time, I played that role perfectly, because it was the only thing I knew how to do. So, everything began to shift because of Miriam. She followed me everywhere, asked questions no one had ever asked me. Not just what I did, but what I thought. And one day she asked, "What do you believe happens after people die?" Not what the bishop says, not what we're taught, what you believe. That question did something to me. It reminded me that I had a voice I had never been taught to use. The change didn't come all at once. It came quietly. I moved things in the kitchen, rearranged shelves, changed small details no one else would notice. But I noticed, and it mattered, because those small choices became something bigger. They became proof that I still existed inside my own life. The real shift came months later, in a community meeting. A woman had been shunned for leaving her husband. Everyone knew he had hurt her. No one said it. The bishop spoke about duty, about marriage, about obedience. And for the first time in my life, I spoke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but clearly. And once I started, I couldn't stop. The consequences came quickly, but something else came with them. Change, not in the community, not immediately, but in my own home, in Ezra. One evening, after everything had settled, he stood in the doorway and said something I never expected to hear. "You were right." It wasn't a dramatic apology, not a transformation, but it was the first time he had truly looked at me, not as a role, not as an arrangement, but as a person. I am 23 now. I still live in that house, but it's different, not perfect, not what I would have chosen at 18, but real. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped disappearing. I started speaking. I started choosing. Even in small, quiet ways. And those choices added up. I didn't get to choose how my story began, but I am choosing how it continues. And for the first time in my life, that feels like enough.